cafe was noisy with clinking cups and laughter, but inside her chest, there was only silence. Amara stared at the untouched cup of tea in front of her, her hands trembling slightly. Just 3 weeks ago, she had been standing at the altar, waiting for the man she thought loved her, the man who had sworn to spend forever by her side. But forever had ended before it even began. He had never shown up, no explanation, no apology. Just absence, louder than any betrayal. She thought the world would stop spinning, that her heart would burst from the shame and humiliation. But instead, life continued cruelly, as if nothing had happened. Now she sat here, in a foreign city, trying to rebuild what little was left of her. It was at that cafe table, with red eyes and swollen cheeks from nights of crying, that she would first meet the man who laughed at her, and then froze in shock. Amara had always been different. Born to Ghanaian parents but raised across continents, she had lived in places most people only read about in books. Paris, Rome, Beijing, Rio. Each city had imprinted a piece of itself upon her heart. Languages became her companions when people were cruel, when classmates mocked her dark skin, her accent, or her strange name. She taught herself to weave words until they became her shield and her pride. But pride had not saved her from heartbreak. The betrayal at the altar had left her spiraling. For weeks, she avoided people, conversations, even her reflection in the mirror. Maybe I wasn't enough, she whispered to herself in the dark. Maybe love just wasn't meant for someone like me. Still, a quiet voice inside urged her to keep moving. That's how she ended up in that cafe, laptop open, pretending to work, when in truth she was running from memories. He entered like he owned the room. Tall, sharply dressed with an aura of money and power that made others glance twice. He ordered an espresso and, noticing the empty chair beside her, casually asked if he could sit. Amara nodded. For a while, silence lingered. Then he asked where she was from. It was a question she had been asked all her life, sometimes with genuine curiosity, sometimes with judgment. Instead of giving a simple answer, she surprised even herself by saying softly, "I speak 9 languages." The man raised his brows, then chuckled dismissively, the way rich men often did when they believed someone exaggerated. 9. That's cute. He smirked. What do you do with all those? Order food in 9 different countries. The laughter stung. It was the same sound of doubt she had heard her whole life, from teachers, from classmates, even from the man who had left her. For a moment, she wanted to shrink, to disappear. But then something inside her, the little girl who once read dictionaries under her blanket with a flashlight, rose up. She looked him in the eye, her voice steady. No, I speak 9 languages because words save lives. Because every time someone shut a door in my face, another door opened when I spoke to them in their own tongue. Something in her tone made him pause. His smirk faltered. And then, when she began speaking fluently, first in French, then Spanish, then Mandarin, his laughter froze into silence. His hand stopped mid-air, the cup of espresso trembling. Amara noticed the change in his expression: surprise, disbelief, and then something deeper, almost like recognition. That night, she went home replaying his reaction. For the first time in weeks, she smiled faintly. Not because she had impressed him, but because she had remembered her own worth. Words had always been her strength. Maybe they could be her healing too. Days turned into weeks. The millionaire, whose name she later learned was Daniel, kept showing up at the cafe. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. He no longer laughed at her. Instead, he listened, really listened, when she spoke. Through their conversations, Amara began to see pieces of her own pain mirrored in him. Behind his wealth and power was a man haunted by emptiness. His money could buy him everything except peace. He confessed one day, "I travel the world, but everywhere feels the same. Cold, lonely." It was the first time Amara realized that heartbreak wore many faces. Hers was betrayal, his was isolation. She began to share her own journey, the abandonment, the shame, the doubts. Instead of pity, Daniel offered quiet respect. He asked her to teach him small words in different languages: hope, forgiveness, love. She noticed how his face softened when he repeated them, almost as if he was trying to rebuild himself through every syllable. And somewhere in the process, Amara herself began to heal. She started volunteering at a community center, teaching immigrant children English while learning snippets of their native tongues in return. The children adored her, and in their laughter, she found a new rhythm of life. Daniel once came to watch, standing quietly at the back. She noticed his eyes glisten as he whispered to her later, "You make broken people feel whole again." One evening after class, Amara sat on the steps outside, the sunset painting the sky in shades of gold. Daniel sat beside her. For a long moment they were silent. Then he said, almost in a whisper, "Do you know why I froze that day when you spoke 9 languages? My mother, she was a refugee. She only spoke one language, and people mocked her for it. I spent my life ashamed of her accent. But when you spoke, it was like hearing her voice honored, finally. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at my own ignorance." Our tears welled in Amara's eyes. For the first time in months, her heart didn't feel broken. It felt alive. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some nights she still cried. Some days she still doubted herself. But she was no longer trapped in the shadow of her past. She was learning, little by little, that her value was never tied to who left her or who laughed at her. It was in the way she carried her voice, her story, her strength. Amara didn't need Daniel's admiration to feel whole, though it warmed her heart. She had already rediscovered the love she thought she lost. The love for herself. Moral of the story: true healing begins when you stop seeking validation from the world and start honoring your own worth. No betrayal, no laughter, no rejection can take away the strength that already lives inside you.